Welcome to the paranormal and metaphysical world of Twilight Tonight. Host DeeDee Moonflyer grew up with very open-minded parents who had many experiences with UFOs and the paranormal. Because of her mom's insistence on exposing her to spiritual classes, meditation, and teachings of Edgar Cayce, DeeDee had a fascination and deep interest in the paranormal. Her own paranormal experiences have led her to seek out and interview other fascinating, knowledgeable people for better understanding of this phenomenon. Now, your host of Twilight Tonight, DeeDee Moonflyer.
Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Twilight Tonight. Tonight, of course, we have some more amazing guests for you. We have Dr. David Bettenhausen and Carla Bogni-Kidd. They have had 29 lifetimes together. They have written 4 books together, and we're going to ask them how it all began. So please welcome Carla and Dave.
Hi, DeeDee.
Hi, DeeDee.
How are you?
Great. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you guys. I'm so excited about this.
I'm glad. We love to hear our story.
I am fascinated by the 29 lifetimes together, and I am very fascinated by the 4 books you wrote. The Gift of Past Lives with Mother, Isabel, God, and Elizabeth. Hell, No Reincarnation. The Manual, Her Hupa, and His Rose. Mm-hmm. And it all started with meditation due to stress.
Mm-hmm. You get that, DeeDee. You must have looked a little bit at that first book.
Of course. I loved it.
Did you? Good.
Yes.
So, since you've read that, but the listeners have, we'll try to give you a little bit for the listeners. I'm a physician. Back in 2014, we were having lots of stress. We started electronic medical records. We weren't as young as we used to be. Mm-hmm. We were used to paper and pen dictation, checking off just a super bill, those kind of things. This changed the way we had to do everything. And it sort of became that I was locked with electronic stuff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Always had my phone, my TV, my computer, something. We started this. It became very stressful, and I became a little bit grouchy.
Crabby.
Understood.
To the point where Carla finally was frustrated almost with me because she couldn't talk to me. I was getting grouchier with patients. Had a lot of other personal issues going on in life.
So I gave him an ultimatum. I said, okay, what are we doing? Either I'm calling a counselor and we'll see what's going on with you, or I was reading an AARP magazine one morning about meditation and all of the benefits. That dates me, I know. It has some good articles. But anyway, it was talking about all the benefits of meditation, which Dave can go into with you for your listeners later. But he said, well, why don't you meditate? Like a typical man would say, I don't want to go see a counselor. No. Yes.
Doctors never admit any weakness.
Yes.
It's a rule.
Very true. Yep.
So we decided as an office, we would meditate. So we started early in the morning, about a half an hour before the patients came in. It was like 7:30. And we were in our break room, dimly lit, peaceful music, candle, and we were all real quiet. And, on day 1, we said it was really difficult to turn off your mind. Day 2, we said, we all saw bright colors, different colors. Day 3, the girls said, we don't want to do this. We don't want to come in early. We'll do it at home. So it was just Dave and I, and we indeed meditated about 35 minutes, and we heard the patients coming in. So we got up, went to our adjoining office, and Dave came up behind me and he said, Carla, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but he said, I think I was talking to your mother. Well, this caught my attention because A, he never met my mother. She had died like 18 years before that. And B, I'm thinking to myself, why is my mother coming to you? I was meditating all the time. So I said, well, what did she have to say? And he said, well, the reason I think it's your mother is because she looked like you, and she was jovial and laughing, and she kept showing me a shoe. So I said, what kind of shoe? So he went over to the computer and he Googled ballroom dancing shoes, and 60 or 70 pair popped up on the screen. And I went over and I said, which shoe? And he said, this one. And he pointed to the exact ballroom dancing shoe that my mother wore her whole life. It was a short pump, open-toed sandal, and she wore it not only for ballroom dancing, but like for dress up and for church. So, that was an aha moment. And then my sister was also working in the office, and she went in the back, brought up a picture of my mother and turned it around and showed Dave, and he got real emotional. And we said, what's the matter? And he said, that's who I was talking to. So that kind of got our attention, and we decided, well, we would just keep meditating to see why my mother came forward and what was going on.
Actually, they wanted to meditate around the clock, every moment we did. One time, they was like, let's see if we could talk to mom again.
Sure. And, I understand that.
Yeah. And so we kept meditating, and then I'll tell you a little bit of the benefits, because first thing to tell you is the first year that I meditated, I lost 104 pounds.
Wow.
So some of the benefits: lowers blood sugar, lowers high blood pressure. It lowers stress and anxiety, so decreases cortisol, which is that stress hormone that makes people gain weight, feel hungry, and those things. It has many health benefits. It makes you more productive, all sorts of different things that happen. So it's started right off the bat to make me feeling better. Just shutting off a computer for 30 minutes and then going to see the patients, I felt a little bit more human.
Right.
So we kept meditating, and there was a day where I had this memory, and when it came over me, I was like so surprised, because I had been seeing little pictures of things, hearing things, but not really knowing. I saw this great grid of lights, and it would spin and turn, and it looked like, as I got away from it, it was an infinity sign. And as I watched this thing, I was like, all points of light are connected. I didn't understand anything that was going on, but I would tell Carla, and she would jot something down. I saw a big gold dome one day. We kept writing things down.
Bits and pieces of faces and places, and none of it made sense, but we thought maybe eventually it would.
Right.
And so we kept going. Then I had this memory, and I remember getting in a blue sedan, driving when I was 3 years old, driving from Nebraska all the way across the country to Boston. I didn't know what Boston was, but when I got to Boston, my folks moved into married student housing. I now know Dad went to graduate school in Boston on the GI Bill after he came back from the Korean War. But we went to Boston. We were there only one summer. And that summer, we went to the ocean, to the beach. And I remembered it so vividly that day, because I was running on the beach, and I was screaming, and I could see the Ferris wheels in the background and a roller coaster and little people's feet hanging from them. And as I was describing this, I was screaming and yelling, and suddenly this little girl ran over and pushed me down. She sat on my chest, gave me a kiss on the forehead. She jumped up, said, "Be quiet, you're bothering my family." And in the background, I heard, and she's standing in a little two-piece blue ruffled bathing suit. And I'm telling the girls my memory. And they were like, "When were you in Boston?"
Yeah, we said, "When did you live in Boston?" Because we were from Boston.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." And so I'm telling the story. I said, and I'm telling the memory. And then and right then it says, I hear, "Carla, that's not how little girls act." And Carla looks at me.
And I said, "That was me, Dave." And I remember it like it was yesterday, because I was the youngest of 6 girls, good Catholic family. My parents were always splitting up. At that particular time, they were back together. We didn't have a cab. We didn't have a car. We weren't well off, but Daddy rented 2 cabs, and we went to Revere Beach. And as Dave was describing it, I knew it was Revere, because Revere had an amusement park with it. And, not all beaches did in Boston. But that particular day when we got out of the cabs, everybody had their bathing suit except me. And I don't know why, but we all went across the street. My parents couldn't afford it, but they bought me my first 2-piece blue ruffled bathing suit. It was brand new. It was etched in my mind forever. So when Dave said that, I'm like, oh my God, how could he know that?
And sort of what's interesting with the story is we were 3 and 4. We didn't meet again for 36 years.
And we never had contact either.
Yes.
Interesting.
And then I bought the practice that Carla was the office manager. And it's
in Ohio.
In Ohio. Yeah.
What part of Ohio?
Findlay.
Yeah, just south of Toledo.
I'm from Dayton, so.
Oh, okay.
And so here we had this strange aha moment where, like, I met you it was then 50 some years ago.
Yeah.
That we had actually met because we'd been working together almost 25 years.
It was 60 some years ago.
Well, it is now.
Yes.
And so we were like really excited by this, by all the things that are happening. And then there came a day and another woman talked to me, and her name was Isabella. And she told me she was my spirit guide. Now, Carla and I were both raised Catholic. She has a Mormon stent somewhere in the middle of that.
Mormon Methodist.
Yeah.
Oh.
Catholic Mormon Methodist.
Yeah. But
wow.
I was like, what's a spirit guide? That doesn't exist in my vocabulary. She said that we all have a spirit guide. We're all a direct connection to God. That there are angels that are separate and different. All these kind of conversations we had with Isabella, and Carla has so many questions. She keeps asking me questions.
Every day would meditate. Every day I'd come in with a new set of questions, because if you can imagine, we're just like everybody else. We all have questions about life and why we're here and where we're going and what we're doing and what happens when we die. So I had all of these questions, and Dave would meditate and Dave would ask.
And so Isabella started telling us things. And one day she said, well, Dave, I've been with you for 6,000 years. And I was like, what? She says, through all of your lives. Well, it's now many years later. We've talked to her for so long. We now know that I have 42 past lives. Carla has 34. And we discovered 29 of them were together. Wow. And what really set us off was the day that I started having another memory while I was meditating. And I was looking across a dark alley, and I saw Carla standing there. Now, I say it was Carla. Didn't look exactly like Carla.
Younger and thinner Carla.
No, but it looked somewhat like Carla, and she still had the same blue eyes. And as I looked across the alley, she was excited. 2 men were tussling. I saw 2 large flashes, heard 2 bangs, realized I was shot in the chest, was thrown back on the ground, and I was dying, and the lights went dark. And I suddenly was pulled up through space, time, eternity, flying through. And it was the strangest memory. And I didn't understand it. But we meditated again, and Isabel was trying to say, it's a life that you had. And it's the first life we found out about that we had together. So the next day, I got more of the story, but it was before the day I got shot, days before the day I got shot. And I was on a way to a wedding to a man named Angelo. I was traveling in Chicago, Illinois to Ashland Auditorium. Now, I didn't know there was an Ashland Auditorium in Chicago, but that's where I knew I was heading to go to this man's wedding. And I walked up the steps, and there was a makeshift church inside Ashland Auditorium, and it was filled with people. And I was sat over in the corner. And as the wedding starts, the woman I saw in the alley walks out, and she's the wedding singer. And I think she's beautiful, and she sings so beautifully, and I really want to meet her. And I know the wedding is occurring on in 1925,
January the 10th.
January the 10th. And so I go and during the reception, I try to meet this woman. I find out her name is Ruby. I try to invite her out to breakfast because she's fascinating. And I go to my small room that night and lay out my clothes, and I get up the next day and I go to meet her for breakfast at Marino's in Chicago. And we take a walk along the Chicago coastline, and she tells me her name is Ruby Donaldson and she was born in Bullock, Georgia, and that her parents' names are Ann and James, and that she's moved to Chicago because she wanted to be a dressmaker and a singer.
Huh.
I'm trying to tell Carla this story. And Carla, you tell what you, I mean.
Well, I thought, well, it wasn't that long ago. Certainly we could find some sort of corroborating information. So I got onto Ancestry.com, and I did indeed find Ruby Donaldson, born in 1904 to James and Anna Donaldson in Bullock, Georgia, one of 11 children. There were pictures, not of me, but of my parents and some of my siblings. And then I found, I got into some Chicago newspapers and found the wedding of Angelo Jenna to Lucille Spinola, January the 10th, 1925, at Ashland Auditorium. It was in, there were over 3,000 mobsters there. He was the head honcho before Al Capone. So they didn't have a church large enough for all these mobsters. So they created a church at Ashland Auditorium. So found articles, a couple of articles, one of their wedding cake, which stood over 10 feet tall. So I called Dave and I said, Dave, I have corroborating information on both of these things. You are not cracking up, and you're not just coming up with these things. This is real.
Wow. That's fast. So these are people in your family, Carla. This is part of your ancestry.
No, this is me.
But yes,
Cool.
This is me. This is us 2 lives ago.
Oh my gosh. I love
We
that.
we have a life in between there where we were brother and sister. Our last life, my name was Katie. His name was Johnny. We were also from Chicago. I was 6 and he was 4. And on Christmas Eve in 1944, was it? We were playing on our 3-story staircase. Our mother was downstairs. Her name was Rose. She was wrapping presents. Our father was in World War II. He was a pilot. And as she was down wrapping and our father was fighting in the war, we were playing on the staircase and we fell to our deaths. We both broke our necks.
Oh my gosh.
And, they say how things follow you. We both have neck issues in this life. But yeah, those are our past 2 lives. But it wasn't always like a love interest. We've been brother and sister. We've been neighbors. I've been his mother a couple times.
Way too many times.
Yeah. Yes. So, because we fought, we travel in soul groups and over and over and over again. And the people that in our lives, we come back together for one of 2 reasons. We either come back to help each other or to test each other karmically because we have something to work out with them. For instance, our next door neighbor has been in our lives 21 times karmically. So hopefully we have that resolved. Yes.
So we started just on a journey because it was so foreign to me that our first book, we have 20 of our past lives together. We have a lot of lessons from Isabella. And so, of course, the first person we met was Carla's mother. The second one was Isabella. There was a day when God spoke to me, and then we met Elizabeth, who is Carla's spirit guide.
And, this might sound strange to some people, but God speaks to a lot of people. And usually when people say that, people think, oh, that doesn't happen. God has never abandoned us. God is there if you're listening and will speak to you, is always available. And near-death experiencers will, they confirm that. Many people have talked to God.
And what we've been looking at for writing our books is first we did go out and try to prove that reincarnation was true to us. So we found the research at the University of Virginia Department of Perceptual Studies. They have about 2,500 kids. They were kids when they
Confirmed
when
cases.
they studied them. because you can't really teach 3 and 4-year-olds to lie. And so when 3 and 4-year-olds tell you, I have an imaginary friend, or I remember when I was your father. What does that mean? Well, they've got about 2,500 cases where the kids remember enough things. They remember houses they lived in. They remember people that they knew. They remember names, dogs, etc. That they'll go in and test them with 5 pictures of people and say, which one of these do you remember? And it's somebody from that life.
Or they take them back to the home that they say was previously theirs, and some member of the family is still living there and is convinced by the time the child leaves, because they know the child has information that nobody should have. Wow. So there's all those studies confirmed.
So those 2,500 cases, and then they have broken them down in such ways that they found out that about 20% of those cases, those kids have intermission memories. And it's really interesting because I have some intermission memories since we've been meditating. And those intermission memories pretty much match what I learned. They very much parallel what near-death experience people say. They see beings of light. They have people that help them with their decisions for the next life. They start to meet passed over loved ones when they get there. They pass toward the light, or they see eternity going by. They realize that they don't experience things in normal sound, sight. It's somehow amplified, and most of it seems to be telepathic. And they all say they have this overwhelming sense of love. Well, I've had those experiences, and many near-death experience people do. 500 of the kids have had the same kind of experience. And when we started reading those things, I started thinking, there's something the Catholic Church didn't tell me. And so we went out, and of course, then we wrote the second book, which was Hell No Reincarnation, which talks a little bit about our journey of studying reincarnation and even some of the history, including the things that
baby. Does he want a cracker?
Oh, she's up here, and then I have another one. That's what you're hearing. My I love animals.
We too. Yes. We have 2 puppies.
2 puppies and 2 cats.
Yep.
Oh, I love those. But she's an Amazon. She'll come down and say hi probably soon.
Oh, how cute.
So, we kept looking at all the things that we could find that were patterns, and then we started doing some research, and we found that, of course, 20% of the population believes in reincarnation, including 20% of most Christians. There's a lot of information out there on some Christian reincarnation theories. Certainly, one of the earliest church fathers was Origen of Alexander. In about the year 200 AD, he wrote most of the early doctrine of the church. And even when he's writing, he says the soul existed before you were born, the soul exists after you're born, and that transmigration of the soul is how you learn your lessons. It's not surprising that an early church father would write that, because it's always been a little bit of a Jewish Kabbalah type teaching also. And then you start looking at across the globe, and you realize that the American Indians believe in some sort of ancestor, or that you could be your ancestor returning. We, of course, have the Hindus that believe this significantly. Buddhism. It becomes something that's across the world, and not just in our little experience.
And, reincarnation and past lives, it's really fascinating and fun. But, we come for a reason. And as we tell in the first book, The Gift of Past Lives, the way to get off the karmic wheel is to simply live a life without conceit, jealousy, selfishness, and unforgiveness. And if you can do everything out of love and compassion, you live your life that way, you'll get off the karmic wheel. Now, it's it's easy to say and hard to do because, we're pre-programmed and we're living in this world on plane 1 of the 7 planes. And it's very difficult. And the best way to do it, first of all, is if you meditate, because through meditation, you might not think that you're being reached, but you are indeed. Your spirit guides, the angels, God, they're all reaching you. They're talking to you, whether you know it or not. And when you quiet yourself, they can do that. And possibly you'll even hear them. So if they're reaching us, then it's easier for us to stop ourselves with every action and say, is this compassionate? Is this loving? Or am I just doing this out of conceit? Because conceit really does overwhelm all of us. It takes over in lots of forms. But of all the things that we do, of all the emotions, they all break down to those 5 things. They all fall under, conceit, jealousy, selfishness, unforgiveness, or love.
And so Isabella did teach us the 5 simple rules. And in the first book, we actually look at the end of each life, we kind of look at what we might have done that was wrong. And Isabella tried to kind of guide us through that pathway too, so that you could see why we had to keep returning and what things we need to work on.
And we try to narrow down what conceit is. Conceit isn't just looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I look good. There's conceit is if you think you're always right. We try with the 5 simple rules in book 1 to, break that down and say, okay, just evaluate yourself. It doesn't hurt to evaluate yourself. We're all saints and sinners in our past lives. In fact, like Dave was saying, we found patterns where we were, first we were Vikings fighting the Scottish, then we were Scottish, fighting the English, and then we were English fighting the Scottish. And that goes back and forth so that you learn all sides of everything. Some people have been male and female. Suppose you're an abusive man, and in the next life, you're going to come back as a woman that's abused so that you can feel what it's like and you can become compassionate.
My question is to you guys, since you were both Catholic, and I was raised Catholic all the way till I was 13. Has that affected your belief system with the Catholic Church? Have you discussed it with priests and how they feel about it out of curiosity?
Well, funny, I have tried. I've emailed a couple of priests and they don't respond. So, but there's probably somebody out there that would. I'd love to have a priest contact us. Would love to talk to one.
So I have a friend who's a Lutheran pastor. So not Catholic, so he's not a priest.
But close.
But he's also he was a history major. And so professor. So he's got a lot of general credentials and knowledge. And I will tell you that when his wife died, he called to discuss everything that might be happening.
And to see if Dave could contact her and have a message.
So they're not necessarily all closed. And if you have the talk, and I've had relatively in-depth conversations with him, and he won't say, I don't believe you. He'll say, this is the biblical theory. And I don't, this wouldn't be that way. And part of that argument is what Isabella's told us is that reincarnation is really the perfect justice and mercy by God, because it not only do you get another chance if you don't do it right,
like any loving parent would do.
Yes,
right.
A normal loving parent doesn't say, you stole the pencil,
go to hell.
Okay, you're going to have another time. They're going to give you a chance. They're going to try to work with you. And so you're forgiven, but still tested.
Absolutely.
You may have to address it again. You're going to go through this lesson until you get it right. And he said the problem with reincarnation and the difference between most of the conservative and or Catholic belief systems, Protestant and Catholic belief systems, is that the system that says Jesus died for you doesn't work if you get another chance.
Absolutely.
And so that's where the conflict for him with this is that when we go through everything Isabella's told us, he doesn't disagree with any of it.
And Jesus didn't have to die for us, by the way, because we are all responsible for our own actions. We don't get to skate in on Jesus. Whatever we do, we will face the music by coming back again and figuring it out one way or the other.
You know, and I know people will say that I've had some sort of crazy experience. You're a nut. And I want those same people to realize that almost all of the Christian faith is based on a man named Paul, who Paul says, I was walking down the road to Damascus and I had a vision and Jesus appeared before me after his death. Not that I saw the risen Lord, but that Jesus appeared and it knocked me off my feet. And he told me all the secrets of the universe, and I'm sharing them with you.
Awesome.
Okay.
On that note, Dave, we're going to take a 1 second break.
Sure.
Hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. I can't wait.
Heard a girl scream down here.
Are you kidding me right now?
I'm listening.
Doing very well. Thank you so much. You are coming. Oh, sorry. I'm so
It's
excited.
okay. We're back too.
My one question I have, when you wrote the manual,
Yes.
you described each of us in a way had angels as our guides. We were all assigned angels. And I found that really fascinating to know that we're all assigned, but it's almost like astrological, correct?
Correct.
It is.
Correct.
Well,
And we all have lessons with
Yes.
these angels. Like
they're-
if you were Aries or Sag or
Correct. DeeDee, what's your sign?
I'm afraid to tell you.
Well, if you read the book, you know that none of us sound that great.
I'm a Sag born on the 6th.
All
Okay.
right. Well, at least you're a 369, which means you do everything heartfelt.
I love animals.
Yeah, us too.
So DeeDee, we won't use you. Let's use me anyway. So I'm a Pisces, and Pisces are a little bit weenie-ish sometimes, but
They're kind of wishy-washy on decision making.
yeah, you can't decide which way to go and some of those kind of things. But we were very surprised because Pisces fell under the angel of
The yellow angel of Mariel, which is the angel of selfishness. So when you look at that, you think,
oh my God,
we're selfish?
we're selfish. What does that mean?
And Isabella said, it doesn't mean you're selfish now. God gave that to us as a gift. The angel to remind us, because when we, in our last life, when we were Katie and Johnny, we didn't live long enough to do anything. But as Ruby and JJ in Chicago, the flapper and the junior banker, we didn't think about anybody else except being together. And consequently, that caused his death and all kinds of other things to happen. And we were selfish. We only thought, that young passion we had to get together. And a lot of people were hurt by that. So in this life, we were given a gift, an angel. So the astrological signs are broken down into 4 sets of 3. So Aquarian, Pisces, and Aries fall under Mariel, which is the angel of selfishness. And then you have, without my glasses, I have to look because I'm getting old.
I want you to think about this slightly different, because even when we were writing the book and Isabella's telling us this stuff, I was like, okay, I'm selfish. She says, think of this as the gift.
Yes.
You have the angel of selfishness to help prevent you from making the same mistake.
Gotcha.
And along with that, we all have, like Aquarians, they have fears. And Aquarians' fears are change, emotional loss, death, and self-sacrifice. Pisces, and that again falls under selfishness. Pisces, they fear loss of love, lack of change, death, and self-sacrifice. Again, it's selfishness. You're thinking of yourself. And Aries, self-sacrifice, death, lack of change, loss of anything. Again, selfishness. So they're Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer all fall under conceit, which is the angel Shamuel, the pink angel. Leo, Virgo, and Libra fall under jealousy, which is the green angel, green envy of Raphael. And then Scorpio, Sagittarian, and Capricorn fall under the red angel of unforgiveness.
So, DeeDee, I want you to think, if you might have had a problem with forgiveness at a younger age that you're dealing with and you're doing better.
I am. I was a performer for 30 years. A professional dancer. So
really?
I had a lot of people not be nice. And just starting to forgive everybody.
Good for you, because it's better
but
for
it's
you.
taken a lot of work spiritually to be able to do that.
And it includes forgiveness of yourself. So that's also another issue that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to look at that, it gives you a guide of a way to start to think. And that's what the manual is about, is a way to kind of look at how you were created, what tendencies you might have, and how you're working through those tendencies from life to life to continue to grow. There's a lot of things. There's the 12 astrological signs. There's 12 traits listed in there.
12 archetypes.
12 archetypes, all of ways that your tendencies that are added that are related to your past lives and what you have to grow through and learn.
And only an intelligent designer, aka God, could come up with these things, because when you read that book, it is heavy, it's in depth. Even when I edited it, which I do because of the typing and all of those things, it was so confusing because there's a lot of meat there, and you can only read a couple chapters at a time because you're thinking, oh my God, you're thinking about these things. And the point is not to make us all feel bad. The point is to use it as a guide and to use it to self-evaluate. And that makes things a lot easier. When you read, nobody knows what their trait and their archetype is. But if you ask your best friend or you ask your family members, what do you think I am? Because you may not want to admit that that's what you are. But your friends will say, well, yeah, I think it's this, or I think it's that.
Yep.
I mean, there it is. You have to evaluate yourself. And with archetypes, it's really the only thing that God lets you choose yourself. However, it's supposed to be done with your spirit guide, because your spirit guide knows you best. So if you choose an archetype, like for instance, you want to be an explorer because you want to travel and have fun and run, and your spirit guide said to you, you need to be a caregiver because you need to think less of yourself and take care of people, then God will go in there and add a modifier, we like to call it, or an elemental. And maybe he'll put something on you like earth to ground you so that you won't be running and trying to explore.
Or or may put some air there so you're too much up in your head.
Yeah.
So you can't really explore because you can't get out of your own head.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting.
And
But it
who
makes
could
sense.
possibly come up with that? We couldn't come up with that. We are not that smart, trust me. The intelligent designer.
Yeah, but the best part about the manual is if you do read how these things get modified, how they can get an elemental stuck on them, so they may modify your sign so that it makes you more grounded or
more attracted to somebody that you have to meet.
More attracted to somebody you have to meet, because again, all of these things are partially predetermined. I know that sounds terrible. You're drawn to people that you're supposed to meet. There has to be a way, whether it's your astrological sign.
Mm-hmm. And we all feel it, when you meet somebody and you immediately, you like them immediately or you don't. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty good, red flag right there, that either they're karmically there for you or, there's a family mate. So if it's karmically and you don't like them for whatever reason, then try to work it out. Try to be nice, try to get along, whatever the case may be.
Because there's something you need to work out between the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
And we can think that all of this is an accident. But from all of the experiences that we've had, part of this is all planned. And that's the other part of this that's so strange, is it's all planned, and yet God gives you free will to make every decision.
Yes.
And that's very hard to explain to people, that you're drawn to someone, but it's your choice to interact. And that's where sometimes breaking the cycle is what's important. We know in families that abuse goes through families and alcoholism goes through families. And it's not surprising that if you had an alcoholic father and you turned into an alcoholic, that you'll have a son who might become an alcoholic.
That could be your grandfather that was an alcoholic.
Yes. So it could be somebody that was an alcoholic in the past that's now dealing with you as their father, because someone finally has to say no and break the cycle. It's too easy. It's almost selfish not to break the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's selfish not to take care of yourself. It's selfish not to watch your own health. So those definitions of selfish become different.
I have a question.
Sure.
For Carla. Carla, I don't know. I never could have kids and always wanted kids. I don't know if you have children or not.
I do not. Neither does Dave.
What is the reasoning, that some women have children and some of us can never have children?
Well, again, it's for two reasons. It's either karmic or it's a lesson for somebody else. Now, remember, everything that happens to us in life is not just about us. We are here for everybody else. We're so connected that possibly you don't have children because somebody else had to feel something. Either your mate, your sister, your brother, whatever the case. In my case, I was never going to have children, although I tried. But in this life, we have lots of things to do besides having children. My mother always used to say, people have children that need to learn lessons. Now, think about that. We learn a lot from being parents. We really do. And good and bad. And there's some people who have a daughter and they just never get along with them. You think they should love each other. Well, they have karma together. So they're back together as mother and daughter because they have something to work out together. So perhaps in this life, you didn't have something to work out that way. You had to take it someplace else. And look what you're doing. You're doing podcasts where you're reaching people. So we all have our little job to do,
So I'm going to give you an example.
And by the way, it's really hard not to have kids when you think human, because you wonder, why am I not having it? But at this age, I now understand, and now I'm cool with it.
So an example, and it's not quite like the kid thing, but it's close. We told you about the life that we had in Chicago where we died as children.
Yes.
When we asked the question, what was the real lesson there at that moment? And the lesson was not for us. The lesson was for our father, who was a World War II fighter pilot, bombing innocent people in Europe. People were losing their families. Somehow he had to know what the compassion and to feel that. So there are times we have loss that really teach us compassion that we will use in the future. Now, people ask this question, so I'm going to bring it up. I don't like the question because it's one that people who have problem with God discuss frequently. Why did God have this small child die of cancer? All of these issues. If you know that you're an infinite soul and that you never really die, it was just a lesson. It was just a moment. Each life is just this much time. I've had 42 lives over 6,000 years. The times that I've been living has been shorter than the times that I haven't, because I'm an eternal soul. I will be here forever. The earth won't be here forever. If we look at the science, the earth says the sun's going to supernova, it's going to melt us down, the temperature will go up, and in 4.5 billion years we'll be gone.
And by the way, all of us, when you look back over your lives, because there's a lot of reincarnation sites out there, a lot of people know about reincarnation and their past lives. They talk to God, they talk to Jesus, they talk to their spirit guides. There's a lot of people out there doing that, but they understand, for instance, we've had some brutal deaths in our past, but I poisoned him once. I mean,
and it wasn't fun.
No, we've done some terrible things. Everybody has. And
Yes.
we've had terrible things done to us. Everybody has done that. Again, I cannot say that enough. We have all been saints and sinners, all of us. When you know that, it's easier not to judge. When you say, well, Jeffrey Dahmer was a terrible person. Well, yeah, he did some things that were really not good. But everything's not black and white. It's a gray world. And we have to think about everybody else's lives. We have not lived that. We don't know what happened to Jeffrey Dahmer in his previous lives. So, you don't know. And people will go, oh, that's terrible. It has to be, you have to live with love and forgiveness. If you don't do it, it eats you up.
Yes, you're
In
right.
this life or the next one.
Yes.
It's weird because I think everyone gets glimpses of past lives, whether it's their passion that they do.
Yes.
I mean, if you would have told me what I was going to do, I would have laughed at you in high school. I'm never doing that. No. And it was all karmic. It was all a lifetime coming back that I had to finish.
So were you a dancer in a past life?
In the Middle East.
Okay.
I believe it.
I traveled to Turkey, lived there on and off for 4 years. And when I was done, I went on the plane, got on the plane, and I'm like, it's finished.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you know how long ago it was?
I think it was part of the bloodline to the lifetime in the 40s when I was gassed in France as a Rom.
Oh.
And my brother was the Nazi soldier that had put me in the van.
There you go. See?
The truck. So that, I think it just stemmed back from that. I wasn't done. I met people karmic there. I felt when I was walking down the street, it actually felt like home the first time. Then it started to get colder and colder and colder. Last time I walked off the plane, I'm completely done. I don't even know if I want to dance anymore.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. You just have to work it out.
That's the perfect story. And while we were going through this, because we started finding stories, and usually it was me having a memory. And when we got done, Carla's looking through these lives that we have, and she was like, I've visited Italy. I went to England. I've been to Scotland. I
got married in Bermuda.
I went to the Mayan
awesome.
Riviera. All of these things.
I traveled back to all the places inadvertently that I had past lives. Something drew me, and I'm sure many people do that, not just us.
Right. People think they're looking for their family history, but sometimes it's their actual history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's so true.
And if between wake and sleep, a lot of people that's when they can reach you because your mind is unoccupied. And that's when I get contacted a lot, is between wake and sleep. And or in the middle of the night, all of a sudden I'll sit up and I'll say to Dave, okay, so-and-so's talking to me. What's going on?
Okay, so this is where the doctor in me jumps in, because this is interesting.
I knew that was coming.
Because the time between wake and sleep, during hypnosis, during meditation, all three of those times, we have actually increase in alpha and theta waves in the brain. And that occurs when memory happens, and that occurs when subconscious lays down positive and negative values for every experience. So if you start to talk about some of that little science stuff in the background, you start to realize there's something with our brain that receives all of this information, and it's not the brain always creating it's the brain receiving the information. And that's where we have these big discussions on, is consciousness an emergent property of the brain, or is the brain a receptor for consciousness? In reincarnation, if you start to look at what it looks like that there is a conscious and a subconscious stream that is all of us, that exists, that you could see moving if you want to imagine it. And it's streaming past us. And our lives here are just a blip of that where that consciousness reaches here. And that life and that consciousness goes back to that stream. And that stream comes from the first consciousness, which is God. And it continues to go. And it's eternal. And it will continue to go. And portions of our lives will jump out to try to teach us something so that we can take it back to the whole. And that's what this little story is happening for all of us. And we're all learning something.
Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. I could just talk to you all night. But unfortunately, our time is running short. How do people get a hold of you, and where do they find your amazing books?
Our website is thegiftofpastlives.com. There is certainly a way to connect us to us from that, and we answer all the emails that come through there. All of our books are listed there.
Are purchasable there, as well as,
your
local bookstore can order them, or Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
All of those, yeah. And all the regular Apple books and everything, you can order them in all those places.
Yeah.
But there's a link on our website that'll take you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Apple or wherever you need.
But meditate, people.
Yes, it's healthy. I love meditation.
It's healthy, and it has the ability to change your life.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for coming on Twilight tonight. I would love to talk to you again.
Certainly, DeeDee.
It'd be a pleasure, DeeDee.
We can run down to Dayton. It's only 2 hours.
Hey, I'm up for that. I visit my dad there. So anytime you guys want to visit, you let me know.
Certainly. Yay.
Will do.
Okay.
All right, guys. Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night, DeeDee. Good night, baby. Get a cracker.
Good night, Maggie.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.